Daniel chapter 6. Well, it's been 2 years since the fall of Babylon, and the Medo-Persians have taken over. Belshazzar of chapter 5, 2 years removed. The new guy, Darius, he's the man in charge now. And so he's setting up a new kingdom, new political structure, new policies, new administrative order. And speaking of administrative order, I was one of those guys. It says here in verse 1 of chapter 6, it pleased Darius to appoint 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom with 3 administrators over them. Well, guess what? I was one of those administrators. I was one of the top officials. Why? Honestly, because of my character. Here I am in my mid to late 80s, maybe even pushing 90, and my character has remained so consistent and so true the entire time that even the new guy sees me worthy of being an administrator. So he's about to put me in charge of at least 40 others. And then there's 2 other administrators, right? So between the 3 of us, we've got some pretty significant responsibilities. Of those 3, I just happened to be the guy who was being the most consistent, the most loyal, the most faithful, doing my job without question. And so, I don't know, I was kind of becoming maybe one of the king's favorites. It says here, the king planned to set me, him, over the whole kingdom. I was set to be second in command. You know what? I've been here. I've done that. I did it with Nebuchadnezzar. And here I am with another king, and I'm about to get a promotion. And guess what? Sometimes when that happens, people don't like it. So like I said, what got me into the lion's den? Well, it all started with a promotion, and then there was a plot. So in verses 1 through 9, we read of Daniel's promotion, and then we read of the plot. Listen, sometimes when things are going well for you, people don't like it. And so they'll make up stories. They'll create gossip or rumor just to tear you down. Well, guess what? That's what happened to me. The administrators, the satraps, says here in verse 6, went as a group to the king and said, "O Darius, live forever." I'm not sure if there's much validity in that comment. I don't know. I think they may have been kissing up a little bit. The royal administrators, prefects, satraps, and advisors and governors have all agreed that the king should issue an edict and enforce a decree that anyone who prays to any god or man during the next 30 days, except you, O king, shall be thrown into the lion's den. Really? All of the advisors? All of the administrators? All of the prefects? I'm pretty sure I wouldn't have agreed to this. So there's this conspiracy, and they've set me up, and they've used words of flattery to the king to get me in trouble. They've created falsehoods, lies, rumors, gossip. What was the one thing they were able to get me on? Prayer. Over the course of my life, prayer had become the most important thing for me. I was a man of prayer, and this is how they got me. So they create this edict, right? 30 days, nobody can pray to anybody except the gods of Darius. And here's the thing. You know how we said they were establishing a new political structure? Well, according to the laws of the Medes and the Persians, basically meant that once the king put it in writing, it was set. Nebuchadnezzar was one of those kings. He could do whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted, because that's how he reigned. The Medes and the Persians, not so much. Different political structure. Once it was written down, it was law. So the administrators, the satraps, the prefects, they manipulated Darius. So here I am. I have a conviction. I can either stand for it, or I can go against it. What do? Hey, there's strength in consistency. There is credibility in doing the same thing the same way all the time. And that's what I did. So I went back to my room, and I did what I've been doing for years. I prayed. And that's what got me in trouble. Prayer. Verse 11 says, "Then these men went as a group and found Daniel praying and asking God for help." Verse 12, "So they went to the king and spoke to him about this royal decree. Did you not publish a decree that during the next 30 days, anyone who prays to any god or man except you, O king, will be thrown into the lion's den?" Oh, here it is. They're questioning his authority. We don't like it when people question our authority. Can he back out of it? Nope. He's put it into writing. So here we go. Daniel's in trouble. Over the course of time, Darius and Daniel would have created a pretty strong relationship. He would have been one of the top advisors. This is nothing new. We've read this before. This speaks to the credibility, again, of Daniel's character. So here's another lie. In verse 13. Then they said to the king, Daniel, who was one of the exiles from Judah, pays no attention to you, O king, or to the decree you put in writing. That's a lie. Listen, if Daniel paid no attention to Darius, why would Darius have been willing to put him as second in command? That doesn't make any sense at all. So clearly, Darius has a heart of concern for Daniel, and yet been put in a pretty awkward situation. He's the king, and he's made an edict. He's made a decree, and he's got to follow up on it, even if it means one of his closest friends has to suffer. So in verses 12 through 17, we read of the prosecution and the penalty. What's the penalty? Well, here we go. Into the lion's den. But even in the execution of the penalty, Darius has concern for Daniel. In verse 16, he says, May your God whom you serve continually rescue you. Listen, here we go again with Daniel's influence. We have no idea if Darius knows who God is. What we do know is that Darius knows for sure that Daniel worships God. I get thrown into the lion's den. For doing what wrong? Oh, that's right. Prayer, the only thing you could find wrong. And even that was a whole complete manipulation. So have you noticed how Daniel has chosen to serve God, not man? And when you choose to serve God, sometimes it might get you in trouble. If you're consistent and you're loyal and you're faithful to God, He will be faithful to you. See, what do we all know about Daniel in lion's den? He survives. When Darius puts Daniel in the lion's den, it would have had to have happened that day, again, in accordance to the law of the Medes and the Persians. So Daniel gets put in the lion's den, and Darius is stressing the entire night. He can't sleep, he can't be entertained, he's stressed, he's worried, he's thinking about his friend, he's concerned. Who knows, maybe he's even praying. And then what does he do at daybreak? He runs to the lion's den to see how things have gone. With concern in his voice, Darius says, Daniel, servant of the living God, has your God, whom you serve continually, been able to rescue you from the lions? Daniel answered, O king, live forever. Something tells me the tone in that statement is a little bit different than the tone that the previous administrators had used. My God sent his angel, and he shut the mouths of the lions. They have not hurt me, because I was found innocent in his sight. Nor have I ever done any wrong before you, O king. Daniel acknowledges that he has stood upright before God, and he's never done anything wrong before Darius. Daniel has chosen to serve God before he's chosen to serve man. So have you ever heard the phrase, what goes around comes around? Well, as we read, Daniel gets protected by the angel from the lions in the lion's den. Darius comes running to see how things are going. Daniel gets out of the lion's den. And then those who manipulated the king into implementing this edict, they're the ones who get thrown into the lion's den. And if you take a look at the details, they get mauled before they even hit the ground. And you know what? It's not just them. It's their family. So why their families? Well, here's the only thing I can think about. Sometimes the decisions we make and the consequences we face don't just impact us. There are times in life when we make bad decisions and the consequences have fallout effects on those around us. I think that may have been the situation for the administrators who tried to manipulate the truth against Daniel. Darius acknowledged that Daniel was loyal, honest, truthful, had integrity, and here the other guys had been exposed. And unfortunately, the consequences of their actions were implemented on their families as well. And then there's this, the proclamation at the end of chapter 6. Then Darius wrote to all the peoples, nations, and men of every language throughout the land. Darius is a pretty influential guy, we already know that. May you prosper greatly. I issue a decree. Another decree. that in every part of my kingdom people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. So here we have Darius making another decree and putting it in writing to all the peoples of all the nations of his empire. We already know of his power. We already know of his influence. What's the significance of this decree? I issue a decree that in every part of my kingdom, people must fear and reverence the God of Daniel. For he is the living God, and he endures forever. His kingdom will not be destroyed. His dominion will never end. He rescues and he saves. He performs signs and wonders in the heavens and on the earth. He has rescued Daniel from the power of the lions. So Daniel prospered during the reign of Darius and the reign of Cyrus the Persian. Listen, I don't know if you've ever had the question go through your mind. I'm sure you have. Why do bad things happen to good people? In the moment, I'm sure it's difficult to think this way. Maybe if we shifted our perspective, instead of asking why do bad things happen to good people, what if we asked why do bad things happen to God's people? You see, at the end of chapter 6, God, once again, gets the glory, not Daniel. And here's Daniel's influence again on another significant king in history. So as we wrap up chapter 6, let me challenge you with this. There are going to be times when you're going to have to go through some really difficult situations just because of your faith. My encouragement to you would be to establish, if you haven't already done so, a lifestyle of prayer. Listen, God is faithful. God will protect you. God will take care of your needs. I know sometimes in the moment it doesn't necessarily feel that way, but if we continue to grow in Him, He will continue to give us strength and perseverance.